This is actually the part 1 of the video. You will notice that there may be another one that says part 1, but that's the fake introduction. So here we go. We're going to actually start the video. As the title says, this is going to be an introductory video on how to use Flash. And these are the things that we will cover. We're going to start by starting Flash. What an idea. Then one of the main concepts that I have not quite stressed enough is save early, save often. And we will talk about that again and again. We're going to talk about choosing to use Flash ActionScript 2.0. We'll go over the parts of the screen and how are you going to find them, because most likely at some point you'll close one of these and you'll go, how do I find them? Well, this will show you how to find them. We're going to go over the menus. We're not going to go into great detail because we'll pick up on this as we go along. We're going to talk about the topic of layers, which you should be familiar with from our work with Photoshop. And then we're going to go over some of the things that you will use first. An intro to the toolbars and tools. And then how does it look like other Adobe products? And as I said before, save early, save often. All right, as you will notice on my screen, I have Flash CS3 on the bar down here, so that when I click on it, it will show up. I have Flash already open, and it looks pretty bare bones, and that's so that I can show you how to find all of the things that we're going to be using. So on the Flash menu, under Window, if you click on Window, if we go for the toolbars, we don't want the toolbars, we want tools. And we do want a timeline. That's going to be very important to us. So I will click on that, and this is the timeline. And you will notice that it is now labeled by layer, and then these are frame numbers. This has very little meaning at this point, but we will get into that. What I'm trying to do with this video is simply show you where things are. All right, now what else? Tools. Well, if you're going to do anything, you need some tools. And this toolbar should look familiar. If we drag it, it is a draggable toolbar, and notice that I can make it long and skinny, or I can make it sort of shorter and fatter. You should recognize many of these tools because they should look a lot like what you've seen in Photoshop. They will have some different uses, and you will find out that there are fewer of them, but that's what you'll need. All right, what else do we need? Properties, so that we can look at things. We want properties. Now, because I've opened other items, I get these other guys as well. And if you'll notice, I can pull this. Whoops, it said. Well, it doesn't at the moment. We'll go into properties more later. This is of the document, which is Untitled 2, all right? And this 550 by 400 pixels is the size of the stage. This is the area that you will actually have content show up on. You can use all of this outside space to quote-unquote stage things or hold on to them until you need them. But when you finally export your product, it's just the area inside the white space that you will see. I can change my background color if I want, and for the moment I don't. This tells me the frame rate of 12 frames per second. We're just going to use that. It's a whole lot easier to use. And it says that I'm using ActionScript 2.0. Well, what's that all about? Many times when you start, you should get a menu that looks like that, or there will be some other opening screen, and you will have a choice of these kinds of projects that you can make. For this class, you want to always use Flash ActionScript 2.0. If you choose 3.0, you're going to have problems. So please always choose ActionScript 2.0 and say OK. All right, there's my new project now, Untitled 3. And it tells me all of this stuff again. We are going to need the actions frame or the actions window because we're going to be doing a little bit of scripting in here. But you're going to want properties so you know where things are. All right, what else am I supposed to cover? Let's go back and look. All right, we talked about how to find the stuff that you're going to use. And we did that by going to the window on the menu bar and then choosing Timeline, Tools, Properties, Properties. We'll get into some of this other stuff later, but for the moment that's going to be enough. All right, menus. All right, let's look at the menus for the moment. Again, most of this should look somewhat familiar. You're going to get the typical new, open, browse, etc., save and compact. I must admit I'm lazy. I've never used that. Save as is going to be important because as we are working on projects, once we finish effectively one stage of the project, I'm going to suggest that you do a save as so that you can always have a backup copy. We will at times import things. If we've got images that we want to import, we can import them. And we're going to talk about the library later, but a lot of times you will want to import to the library. Edit. This should not look a whole lot surprising to you. The famous and favorite undo command Z, redo, which means if you undid something you can redo it. Cut, paste, paste in center and paste in place. The paste in place is going to be our friend. When, not if, but when we make an error of putting something on the wrong layer, we can put it back where it belongs. And there's timeline, there's all kinds of stuff. We'll get into the other items later. View, we're going to want to talk about rulers, grids. I don't use guides particularly, but we'll get into this. I do not particularly like snapping. Good. No, snapping. We'll talk about that. Insert we'll get into. Modify we'll talk about when we get there. Text, you'll find that there are multiple ways of doing everything. When I'm using a text tool, I can either use its property from the Properties panel, or I can work here. We're not going to use that particularly. The control, we're going to test our movies. So you have the command return, which will test the movie. I've never debugged with this, which is probably bad on my part. And back to the windows so that we've got those pieces, parts. And help. It's amazing what you can find out. There's Flash help, there are resources, there's what's new in. Online forums and training, that can be useful. But if you have problems, you can type questions in for search, or you can go to the Flash help. This is going to be a little exciting, so I would recommend either Googling, and if you Google, make sure you type in Flash CS3 into your question, or type in a question there. All right, now what's next? Layers. Yes. As with Photoshop, you can have layers. And in this case, we can have as many layers as we want. And just like in Photoshop, you effectively are looking down through the layers. And I can either make them visible or invisible by clicking on the eye, which says Hide Show, or clicking here. And then there's also the ability to lock. Notice the pencil says that I can draw on it or do something with it, but when I lock it, that goes. You can't do that anymore. This is very handy and we will use it. If I want to add a layer, I have insert layer here. We're not going to deal with this one or this one for a minute. But if I want to get rid of a layer, I can drag it into the trash just the way I could in Photoshop. So let's add, and notice that they go on top of each other. So that if I want a layer between 2 and 3, if I click on 2 and click, layer 4 comes in between those two. And if I drag it into the trash, it goes away. Now, one of the other things I can do is I can double click. It will highlight, and I can call a totally useless name, my stuff. But we will, in the project we're working on, want to label our layers so we know what we're doing. Okay?